Hey guys, it's Jane. It's Friday. It's a beautiful Friday morning here, and I'm here for Friday Reads. I didn't make it last Friday, and that's kind of why we're in this location. I thought I'd give you some explanation of my absence. We did a little bit of work on the house last week. We took everything out of this room, which is my kids' bedroom, and we repainted and we put down new carpet, and then we got new furniture, and yeah, it's all completely different and kind of neat in here, which won't last, but you know, for today you get a nice view. I actually had a fun time yesterday putting the kids' books back in their bookshelf and found a number of things that I was unaware had migrated to the kids' bookshelf, but these things happen. I kind of understand it. I also found a whole bunch of library books, which I don't know why we haven't been getting overdue notices for, but anyway, they're going back now. All right, I've read a little bit in the past couple of weeks, which I need to get on to. I'm nearly finished my letters in the A to Z-to-thon. I've got rid of everything except for the last letter, which I kept to last, the letter J, and the book that I'm reading at the moment has a J, so hopefully I'll finish this by the end of the month. I'm halfway through at the moment, so that shouldn't be a problem, and then I will have won the A to Z-to-thon at, you know, the absolute basic level. Denise is planning on running this again in November, so if anybody's interested, you know, you can start thinking about whether you want to take part in an A to Z readathon in November later in the year. I'm thinking maybe that time I'll go up to the medium level hardness and stretch myself out a little bit more. But the books, the first book that I finished was Ginny Koch's The Night Beat, which I was reading last time I filmed and wasn't super psyched about, and I did actually finish it, but there was a little bit of pushing myself to get it done. It's a paranormal crime story with a really Mary Sue main character who's a detective, and everybody's in love with her, and there are dire doings in the city, and it's going to be the end of the world, but yeah, she saves the day. It wasn't terrible. It just it was all the tropes, every trope, and it just didn't do it for me. So not a strong recommendation. After that, I read The Burning Page by Genevieve Cogman. Much more upbeat about this one. This is the third in the Invisible Library series, which is about an interdimensional library between the worlds, and there are librarians who go between worlds, not interfering but saving endangered books in those worlds. Our central character in this story has an offsider who is a dragon in human form, except for when he decides to take dragon form, which is very unusual and you know, leads to a lot of plot development. There's also an arch nemesis who's a rogue librarian who's been in the background of the previous two books, and this third book is very much about him and him trying to destroy the library and take over the multiverse. It's not kind of total must read. It's not like I'm not going to put it on my best of 2017 list, but it was highly enjoyable. It's really very entertaining. I'm super excited about actually being up to date with the series because there's so many series that I have catching up to do. There is another one of these that is coming out in December, and I will definitely pick it up. So while it's not Nine Fox Gambit, it's very entertaining, and I will definitely be reading the next one. Those two didn't actually add any letters to my ongoing A to Z toll, and then I was like, I have to get back on track. I have to focus. I've got to get rid of some letters. And at this point, I had 3 letters left outstanding, one of which was a Q. And I looked through all of my books. The only book that I own that has a Q that I really felt like reading was Quicksilver by Neil Stevenson. But that's a really long book, and I was like, well, if I'm going to read that one, I should read that last. Maybe there's another book that I can pick up. And I cast around for something starting with Q, and I looked in my library, and there was a Kerry Greenwood, Phryne Fisher, called Queen of the Flowers, and I thought, I have not read that one. That is one of the Phryne Fishers that I've not read. I'll pick that up and give it a go. For those of you who don't know, Phryne Fisher is a female detective series set in Melbourne, which is the city that I live in the late 19th century, I think, or is it the early 20th? It might be the early 20th century. And she grew up, poor beginnings, but through a range of factors inherited money and is now an incredibly wealthy woman. Queen of the Flowers is this little... people come to her with problems, basically, and she solves them. It's that sort of kind of crime series. So she's like, it's like a gentleman detective, only she's not a gentleman. She's a lady, although is she a lady? She's not. It depends on your definition of lady. But they're fluff, but they're well done. They're well done, and yeah, I enjoyed The Queen of the Flowers. By Kerry Greenwood. It's always fun to read a book that's set in your own hometown. After that, I picked up Change Agent by Daniel Suarez. I'm sorry I'm looking over here. I've got it written down on a list so I don't forget anything. Change Agent by Daniel Suarez, which is a brand new science fiction kind of international thriller thing. It's not really my cup of tea. It was a really interesting story, but it was just so macho in its execution that I can't really recommend it. There's a certain type of extreme manly action story that I can only take in very small doses. And this is coming from somebody who's read every Jack Reacher novel, so, obviously your mileage may vary. The idea behind this one, which is a really great idea, is about live genetic modification. So it's set in the future in a world where people do edits on embryos so that their children grow up with the right genetic heritage. And that's partly allowed if you're, doing something about getting rid of a particular illness, but there's a big black market in it as well, where people are pushing the boundaries and getting heightened intelligence and all that sort of stuff, which is actually against the law. And our central character is a detective who works for the UN, whose job is breaking up these cartels and designer baby labs. And he is taken out of the picture by one of the blackguards at the back of it in a very particular way, and that he is injected with something. He's out in a crowded place and somebody comes up behind him and jabs him, like a spy thriller type activity, and he collapses and he goes to the hospital, and then he goes into this coma, and his body, he swells up and He actually survives. When he comes out of the coma a few weeks later, his whole face has changed, his whole body has changed. It seems like, in fact, his DNA is different. They have worked out a way to edit DNA, not just of an embryo, but of a living person. And the evil genius at the back of this has actually turned this guy, this detective, into himself. And so what happens is all of his colleagues come to arrest him. And that's sort of the setup. So it's like this classic sort of lone man against the odds, and everything's against him, and all the apparatus of the state is kind of trying to track him down. It's got all this crazy stuff. It's set in Southeast Asia. It starts off in Singapore, and it kind of moves around Southeast Asia, because that is actually where in this future, that is where kind of stuff goes on. So yeah, it was, I don't know what to say. It was a really interesting story, but some of the macho posturing in it was just a bit too much for me. So having finished that, I'm currently reading the second one in the Skeen trilogy. I read Skeen's Leap a couple of months ago, and I'm now reading Skeen's Return, the second one by Joe Clayton, which gives me the J, which will be my last letter for the A to Z readathon. I'm really enjoying that, and I'll tell you more about that next time. Once I finish that, I've got Company Town by Madeleine Ashby to read. I tried to get this from the library a while ago. If I did get it from the library, but the file was corrupted or something, and I couldn't actually open it. At the time, I couldn't be bothered pushing forward. I just read something else. But I had another try, and I've got it onto my e-reader, and it all looks good. So hopefully, I'll be able to get that one. I was reminded about that by seeing a review of it by David from The Poptimist recently. He's one of my favourite booktubers, so if you haven't seen him, you might want to pop over and check him out. Anyway, that's all I've got to say. I hope you're all well. I'd love to hear what you guys are reading. If you've read any of these books, I'd love to hear what you think of them. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!